Hey guys, welcome back to my house. I'm not in the kitchen this time, I'm in the family room. I'm waiting for my dog to come over and harass me and disrupt the video. He did it all the time when I was teaching online. I mean, he would fall asleep and snore and totally disrupt the class, derail everything, or he would start whining and pacing and wanting to get a treat or whatever. So you might get to see him, you might not. He's sitting by the fireplace right now, so he's pretty content. So we'll see. Anyways, this video is going to be really short. It deals with ideology and policy making. The next two sections that we'll cover in class this week as well deal with some of the same kind of stuff and goes a little bit more in detail. And some of this little section and some of the later sections also will come back to in units 2 and in units 5. So we're just kind of touching base real quick with this stuff, and then we kind of move on and come back to it later on and talk a little bit more in depth about it. So the first thing I want to talk about is if I can get this to advance, there we go, is how there are influences on policy making. And so we're going to talk about a couple of different kinds of policy making. Again, it's going to be real short here. So got an example here for you. So the first one we're going to talk about is majoritarian policy. And it's essentially just a fancy way of saying that most people want it. And so they start to put pressure on their Congress people. That could be their senators, their representatives. They could be putting pressure on their local officials if they want something changed locally. And it's essentially just like a participatory democracy. It's where like people have a direct influence over the government. And so immediately in my mind, one of the things that came to me, being a history guy, was the 26th Amendment dealing with the right to vote, decreasing to the age of 18. And, there was a huge push from high school kids, from teachers, from a lot of people. And the legislative branch was getting a lot of pressure from everywhere to change this during the Vietnam War, because, these kids that were, seniors in high school were getting drafted to go and fight in Vietnam, but they weren't old enough to vote. And so there was a lot of support for this. And it's actually the fastest amendment that Congress has ever passed. And I think the percentage of Congress people that voted for it was something like 94% or 93. I mean, it was a lot. There's only a handful of people that voted against it, but this is an easy one to see, participatory democracy, because there's a lot of people putting pressure on the government to try to change this thing. So put a couple of photos in there for you to kind of illustrate this. So. And again, this is idea of like popular ideas making it into the legislative branch. So the next way is through interest groups. Let me move my hideous face out of the way here. There we go. So interest group policymaking is an example of pluralist democracy. There he is. See, look, he's making an appearance. Come here, buddy. Come here. Well, there you go. You can see his big, ugly mug there. Okay. So interest group policymaking essentially is an example of pluralist democracy, where an interest group starts to put pressure on Congress people, especially to, change their mind on something or pass legislation on something. And they're doing that through a lot of campaign contributions and things like that, especially through businesses. But they also do it through testifying to committees and to Congress in general. And these lobbyists have a lot of influence, for better or for worse, on our government. There's definitely some negatives to that, but that's just kind of the way it is. And so we're going to come back to this in Unit 5. There's actually, I think there might be 2 sections in Unit 5 that deal with interest groups and their role in government. But essentially, this is an easy way for interest groups to start to influence democracy and how things are run. So I found this political cartoon here for you, something that's applicable and something that's fresh in our memories here. Maybe not such a super popular idea, but basically you've got this politician and teachers union weighing down the scales to close schools during COVID. And then you've got all the kids and the doctors saying, open it back up, which, for better or for worse, that's a political cartoon that you've got there. So you can take it for what it's worth. So yeah, we'll come back to this. This is, like I said, just a super brief introduction in this mini little section here. So we're going to get into a little bit more of the deeper details about He's like straight up in the way here. Policy and how the different political parties view policies and kind of the way that those parties and interest groups and everything interact. And we'll come back to that. Some of that's going to come in on Wednesday and Thursday of this week, and some we'll come back to later on in the school year before we finish out the curriculum. So that's it for tonight. 5-minute video, short and sweet. We'll get into a little bit more controversial stuff in class, which I'm kind of looking forward to teaching, but also kind of maybe not looking forward to teaching. But in any case, I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Oh, Jasper says bye. Bye, Jasper. All right.